Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining me. So tonight you have got me, obviously. I have got such an interesting gentleman for you this evening. We've just been chatting and I almost forgot to go live because I was too busy waffling on, as I do, as you all know. I'm not even going to do a whole introduction. There's so much to know about him that I'm going to let him speak for himself because he can pull it across so much better himself. So, no further ado, welcome this evening, Sam. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me on. And yeah, our conversation right before was awesome. I'm just like, are we live yet? I wasn't sure if we were live yet.
I've got a habit of doing that because I get into full-blown conversation. I actually did it. It's my fault. I did it to Howard Petrie last week. I was on his show and I was chatting to him and to John and to Stephen and to Gabe. And we were chatting away. And I was like, we need to go live now. And I was like, oh, okay. 2.25 hours later, we finished the live feed. 45 minutes later, we're still talking. We didn't even go live till like 3 a.m. It was 3 a.m. for me anyway when we went live. It was so I didn't go to bed until like 6:30 in the morning. I can talk. Be warned. I know you've got your own show later.
Yes.
Yeah, you were literally just telling me about. I was saying to you about the fact that I do mediumship, and then you started telling me about your biz. So, do you want to give? I've got so many things I want to ask you about. Do you want to give a little bit of a backstory, a little bit about yourself, and then we go from there?
Yeah. So I was a journalist for a long time, for about 20 years or so. I wrote my first paranormal themed book in the early 2012, and I approached my first book. I knew that I had a sensitivity to the paranormal, but I didn't identify as a clairvoyant or sensitive at the time. But I kind of went in with you know what, I'm going to write this book and I'm going to do my best, which was Ghost of Boston. And then I started, as I was progressing with my books, more and more things started to develop with my ability as a clairvoyant. And it just kind of escalated to the point where you mentioned my show Paranormal Rewind, which is a weekly show on KCOR, and it's international, so you can actually access it. It's at 7 p.m. Eastern time, which would be midnight in the UK. But yeah, so I got an attachment that almost killed me. This was back in 2016. I was doing an event because I'm a specialist in Salem, Massachusetts. So I've been kind of known for my work as a witch trials historian. And I was retelling the story of Richard Crowninshield, who was a murderer who murdered Captain Joseph White in 1830. And so I started telling his story and kind of being theatrical. And before I knew it, I started channeling this man, Richard Crowninshield, and I started getting images about what happened. And he was kind of telling me that he didn't act alone. It was really fascinating. But before I knew it, I was channeling and I didn't know I had that ability at the time. I basically took him home with me.
I'm so glad you said that.
Yeah.
You didn't know at the time, because the first time I channeled, I didn't know I was channeling. I didn't even know how to do it. It just happened. So that for me, that's great that you've just said that, because it makes me feel better.
Well, hopefully what you didn't do that I did, I didn't know I was, and I didn't push it out. And you and I both know if we happen to channel, you have to tell it to basically not to follow you home. And because I didn't know I was really channeling, I didn't know that that's what happened. So this gentleman who was a murderer came with me back to my home, and it was about an 8-day ordeal of going in and out of consciousness. And there were things where he kept saying, do it when I was in my bed, and it basically wanted me to kill myself. It wanted me to jump off my balcony. And then my friend Joni Mahan, who's my co-host on Paranormal Rewind, she knew something was wrong with me. She's also a fellow sensitive. And she's like, Sam, what is wrong? What is wrong? And I'm like, Joni, nothing's wrong. Nothing's wrong. And she picked up psychically that I had an attachment. She reached out to our friend Michael Robichaud, who was a gifted shaman who did a removal. And after that, my abilities after that have gone through the roof. And
wow.
When Michael Robichaud did the cleansing, the removal, I actually saw his spirit guides kind of like darting around the room. And that's not normal with him. Like normally you don't see his spirit guides, you just hear them or feel them. Yeah. But I actually saw them. And so as a clairvoyant, it makes sense because I can see spirits. But from then on, my ability is just like, it's almost like I can't believe it sometimes. It's like, what? And
it is a crazy feeling, isn't it?
It is. I always say that I'm not a psychic. I'm a medium. So I can't predict the future, but I can connect with the spirit realm and I can see what other people can't see. And sometimes it's usually for the, like you and I were talking about this before. You and I connect with the good spirits, the ones that have unfinished business, that want to tell their stories. And that's kind of what I specialize in. But sometimes you run across a bad one. It may or may not be like, evil, but it could be a really angry spirit that's trying to like I guess get my attention or whatever. So I have to be really careful.
Yeah, I get that, especially prisons in places like that, and probably I've not done an asylum over here, but obviously you've got a few over there, so I should imagine anything like that.
I always say that I don't do asylums. What's funny about that, though, is I'm working on a book coming up that is revisiting all the asylums, and a lot of them are turned into like posh condos. And now, so there were like former horrible places in Massachusetts that have been turned into like luxury condos. And I'm like, why would I live there? You know what? Like Danvers asylum. It's like,
why? Yeah, why would you want to live there? I don't think as much as I love what we do, no, thank you. I think I draw the line at that. I don't think I'd want to be doing that at all. So you said you're currently writing a new book. You've written quite a lot of books.
I have. So I wrote like 13, and they kind of have gotten a lot more broader in scope as I went along. I wrote a book right before the lockdown from COVID called Ghosts of the American Revolution. And that was kind of pushed further and further and further for release. So that should be coming out actually in July of this year. And I wrote a book called Haunted Hotels of New England during the lockdown. And I'm currently working on a book called Related to Evil. And that is it talks about the attachment that I got, but it also ties to the fact that I'm related to the Putnam family, who were the major accusers during the Salem witch trials. And I'm also related to Lizzie Borden as well. And Yep. And that it was like earth shattering. I really never researched my lineage. And it actually, of course, goes back to the UK. And so they came here. My family moved to Portsmouth, Rhode Island, and that family line tied me to Priscilla Gould Putnam, who was the matriarch of the Putnam family, and then also led down to a woman named Sarah Earle, who married Thomas Cornell, and they had a daughter, Innocent Cornell, who was the great-great-grandmother of Lizzie Borden. So I'm tied to Lizzie Borden not once but twice.
That's mad.
I know, it's insane.
But anyway, I can put it. That's the first words that go into my head, but that's just...
And all my lineage are all the bad guys. I wish I was like related to the bad guys. It's like being related to like Jack the Ripper if we knew who he was. It's just like, I'm like, what?
Do you know, I still haven't got around to watching it yet. There was actually a show done on Friday on Paranormal United Network, and it was about Jack the Ripper and who he really is. But I haven't actually managed to watch it yet. So you saying that's just reminded me I need to get on there and watch
Watch that show. Yeah, I actually really am fascinated in that case. I haven't done the research that I normally do with the cases that I work on, but I like solving crimes. And as a medium, I really like going into those like cold cases that everyone wants to know, like the Lizzie Borden case. Like, did she actually kill her mother, her stepmother, and her dad, Andrew Borden? And it's a lot more complicated, and there's a reason why we don't know the truth.
So you mentioned cold cases. I was actually asked on an interview last night if it's something that I've ever done, which it isn't, but it's something that I do find very interesting. Is that something you've done in the past?
Well, I just read a book before, like about a year ago, that just came out in May called Mass Murders, and that book is a lot of it's historical crimes, including the Lizzie Borden case, or the Borden family case. But yeah, I definitely have done mediumship work. I have consulted with the police in a few cases that if I get a message and I really think I'm really confident that it is, then I'll relay that to authorities. But I try to stay away from that because to me, I'm chicken. Like, I really am. Like, I'm not this like fearless, like investigator. I really I tend to stumble on some really scary stuff. so I try to stay away from, like, especially if it's like involves murder or curses or anything negative. I try to focus on the happy hauntings, like that I call them, because I feel like that's I do my best work when it comes to giving a voice to those without a voice. And usually it's people that are marginalized. A lot of times it's women or children who could have been murdered, or they could have just died and they didn't know why they died. So that's who I like to work with, but that doesn't always happen. I sometimes have to deal with the bad stuff too.
Yeah, it's not so much fun, is it, when you deal with that type of stuff? You've been on quite a few different TV shows as well. I was reading, obviously I've done some research about you, but for those people that don't know, you have a whole list of different shows you've been on, and the people that you've worked with. I know that my friend Gary, that's in the comments now, I know his ears are going to prick up when you come out with names of people that you've worked with on different shows, because there's one in particular you've worked with that he'd love to talk to.
Yeah, so I've done I would say like about 10 TV shows altogether, but I did the ones that were kind of the standouts. The first was Haunted Towns, and Haunted Towns was with the Tennessee Wraith Chasers, and I was brought on as
I love those guys.
I do too. We had so much fun on set, which was in Salem, Massachusetts. And then I worked with the producers to find locations for them to investigate. And so I worked with Porter and Brandon, and then I ended up meeting like Doogie and the other guys later on, like after the show. But that was like my first kind of like big, like the big gig on television. And then I did a show called Paranormal Night Shifts. I did a show called Haunted Towns. I'm sorry, Paranormal Night Shift, A Haunting. And then so in Paranormal Night Shift, I recounted my experience working the overnight shift at a hotel in Salem, Massachusetts. And on that show, my good friend Richard Estep was the expert on the show. So he and I have.
Yeah, I know Richard. I've actually. I've been very fortunate. Like Mike, Brannon, and Chris, I've interviewed them. Mike, I've interviewed twice, I think now. I've interviewed Chris and Brannon the once, but Mike, Chris, and Brannon are coming here in September to be part of our weekend festival that we're putting on.
Oh, cool.
So the three of I'm actually going to get to meet them in the flesh then, just like you have in September. And so I'm really looking forward to meeting those guys. And Richard, I've investigated with him 2 or 3 times now, I think, and he's done our virtual festivals and things. And so yeah, I know Richard, friends on Facebook with Richard. Speak to him on the odd occasion, not very often these days, time difference and all of that. But yeah, so that's somebody else that a lot of people in the comments, they all know who he is, obviously being a fellow Brit and all that.
Yeah, I actually just wrote the foreword to one of his books called about the Hotel Cecil, which is a hotel in Los Angeles. And I've worked at.
I just watched that. I just watched that show on Netflix.
on
It's
Netflix.
just recently come out about the young lady that disappeared and they found her. Oh yeah, I shouldn't actually say in case anyone hasn't watched it. Yeah, about a young lady that went missing. I'll just leave it as that, just in case anyone hasn't watched it and they want to.
Yeah, so I mean, her name was Elisa Lamb, and it was a very mysterious, weird death. But a lot of people suspect that because multiple serial killers actually stayed at this hotel, including Richard Ramirez, who was known as the Night Stalker, and there was another gentleman who was kind of like a copycat of Richard Ramirez. Utweger was his last name, and he actually murdered people in the hotel. So, does that leave a psychic imprint on the hotel? I would say yes. Richard's a bit more of a skeptic compared to my more like open mindedness when it comes to the paranormal. He's kind of like looking into the cases and whether or not it would leave a psychic imprint. But I'm in a school that it actually does leave a psychic imprint, especially like the serial killer that living at the location for extended period of time and then committing murders there. I think like Richard Ramirez actually did not commit murders at the hotel. At least we don't think he did, but he did do rituals and stuff that would open up something to the dark side.
Oh, that's something I didn't know.
Yeah. I mean, he was a Satanist, so he would do rituals. I mean, it could be conjecture; it may not be proven fact, but he definitely would do. I'm not sure if you've seen the 1984 version. It's called American Horror Story 1984, where they did a fictionalized version of Richard.
I'll make a note of it and make sure I do.
But there was a fictionalized version of Richard Ramirez, like being at the hotel and kind of and doing the. I think that probably did happen, but we don't have proof of that. But what I just will say, there's a lot of mysterious death that happened and things, people jumping out of windows, a lot of horrific things that happen at that hotel. And my tendency is to believe that there is something lingering below, like there's something like that's in the earth or on the land that may or may not be affecting these people.
Because it's absolutely huge. Is it 700 rooms? Is it 700 or so? I've never seen a hotel so big. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah,
the grandeur of it all. But then watching it and then all the surrounding area and everything, it's really not what you expect at all.
Yeah, it's called Skid Row, and it's sort of like the a lot of bad things happen in that neighborhood, and it's kind of dangerous to like walk out of the hotel. A lot of people don't realize that. However, like I actually have never investigated the Hotel Cecil, but I'm going to for my upcoming book that I'm working on. So I'm going to be there this summer, and hopefully it's closed currently, so you can't actually go inside. But we'll see if I can try to get my way inside I want to actually do a cleansing ceremony there to get rid of the negative energy and just like kind of like talk to the spirits that are still lingering there.
And that'd be something very interesting to be part of. And I think it would be a huge experience for anyone that you decide to take with you to go and do that. I wouldn't even know where, such a big place. It's like, where do you even begin?
Yeah, I talked to my good friend Patty Negri, who's on Ghost Adventures, and
I know Patty as well.
Oh, you know Patty? I love Patty.
She's also coming over in September.
Oh, she is? Okay. Yeah, so Patty and I are good friends, and I'm like, Patty, she's like, yeah, let's cleanse it, Sam. I'm like, it's a huge hotel, Patty. We're gonna need like bring in all our friends to be able to do the cleansing.
Yeah. You're gonna bring a mini army, aren't you?
Yeah.
Oh, David says he's watched the Cecil Hotel on Netflix. He said it's really good. I think so too. I'm just going to pop on the comments quickly. So everybody's interacting and commenting and not responding. So do apologize, guys. Gary says, good evening, folks. Hello from Claire. Hi, Gemma. Gary's just saying about asking spirit stuff away from your aura and everything, but you know all about that stuff and channeling now. Because I get confused sometimes as a newbie, sometimes feel nervous because new to things, sometimes just get a feeling of no, don't want to connect to that type of spirit. So it's your intuition. Trust it would be my personal advice.
Yeah, I mean,
trust your intuition.
I agree with that. I mean, I'm also kind of like, I get nervous. Like when I picked up the entity that almost killed me, I was channeling and I didn't know I had the ability to channel. So I've been kind of like, I have channeled since then, but I've been really scared to kind of go there. As someone who has that ability, unless it's really necessary. If I need to get information, I have to kind of go under. I identify as a clairvoyant, but I also am a light trance medium, so I can go into like a light trance and not a deep trance. Which I would say light trance is definitely safer. So if she can just do a light trance, that would be a safer place for her to go.
Guys, I've connected with spirits from the early Victorian days. That was part of the Hellfire Club, and they were well-known people in its day, and getting to the bottom of the story was mind-blowing. Ooh. That's something he's never told me. To pick his brain about that a bit more. It's interesting. Claire's got a question for you before I go on. Who's the most unforgettable person you have worked with in the paranormal? You've worked with a lot of people, so
I really have, and I consider a lot of the people that I've worked with my friends. The one person that I would consider unforgettable that I've worked with, I mean, I really like respect and enjoy John Zaffis. He is known as the Godfather of the Paranormal. He's also the nephew of Ed Warren and Ed and Lorraine Warren. So something about John Zaffis, like he's my go-to when it comes to just sort of like, Andrea Perron. I love Andrea Perron with all my heart. This woman so I would say Andrea Perron and John Zaffis.
There you go. You got two. Claire says thank you for answering. So you got two there. Two for the price of one, Claire. So continuing on with the different shows and things you've done, and then you've obviously there are two shows that we get over here, and then you've done off the top of my head, I can't think. You've worked with Jack Osborne as well, haven't you? At one point. Yeah.
So I did a show called Fright Club, and because of
that's the new one, isn't it?
That's the new one, and so it's currently on Discovery Plus, and I'm not sure if it is going to be available. I know Discovery Plus is just in the States right now, but it's a great show, and you're brought on kind of like remotely, kind of like how we're doing now. They show you a clip, and then you kind of weigh in on the clip. So Jack Osborne, and then it was the Ghost Brothers as well, and Jack. I
haven't seen them in years.
Yeah,
they had a show, didn't they? Sorry, I interrupted you. That's really rude of me.
They still like here. They still have a show, but you're right. Like I don't know if it actually plays over in the UK or in Canada. Yeah, so that's sad because it's a great show. But yeah, so Fright Club is on Discovery Plus, and I'm not sure if it's going to make it over overseas, but yeah, I was able to work with them. The funny thing, because I was wearing my glasses, I'll put my glasses on. I was wearing my glasses during the segment, and off camera, they were like, "Hey, you kind of look like Jack," and they were kind of like joking around because apparently, like when I was on camera, I kind of looked like Jack and Jack Osborne, and I'm like, I don't think I look like Jack Osborne, but apparently the Ghost Brothers.
It's the glasses.
I guess.
They're the same shape glasses, and they're black as well.
Yeah.
And go on.
No, yeah, but I have a ton of respect for Jack. I used to work for MTV way back in the 90s. And I worked in 1515 Broadway, and I remember the Osborne family walking in one day, and I'm like, why is like, Sharon Osbourne and Ozzy Osbourne walking into MTV? Because I felt like Ozzy was so like not to be played on MTV at the time. And I saw Kelly and Jack was just a little young man, and he was like a boy at the time. And that turned out to be the Osborne show. And so I saw them before the show.
Oh yeah, cool. Was it that long ago?
It was that, yeah, it was in the 90s. I worked at the main headquarters at MTV at the time, which was it was like early 90s.
I remember watching that. Actually, we're unfortunately, like you said, like the Ghost Brothers, I liked that show when that was on, and they just kind of over here, they seem to just disappear, and that was it. We didn't see any more. And with their new show with Jack and obviously in yourself, I don't think. Well, I don't know if we'll actually get it because obviously it being on Discovery Plus, whether we'll actually get it because everything's delayed here. So we're watching shows. The shows you're watching now, we'll be watching probably next year. We're
Right.
behind all the time. So it's really disappointing because we miss out on so much. And there are some really good shows that you've had over there that we've had over here for like one series or something, and then you've not seen them again. It's like, what happened? They just disappeared.
A lot of it's ratings, whether or not people respond to it. So I'm not saying that the Ghost Brothers had bad ratings, but also too, for example, like I filmed a show called Forbidden History, which my producers were Brits, so they came over here, filmed the show. So that show actually aired in the UK before it aired in the States. And so sometimes you can actually do a show, and that show, I love that show. The producers they were lovely. We had a wonderful time. We filmed actually outside in Salem in January, so it was freezing. Mm-hmm. But I've been on the other side too, where it's just aired in the UK and not in the States. It did air in the States, but much later on.
Yeah, it's disappointing. Like I said, that I really like the Ghost. There's a couple of shows, including the Ghost Brothers, I used to like watching. And I was like, why? Why can't we watch it anymore? It's not fair. And obviously, hopefully, this new show will air over here, and we will get to watch it. Because it'd be disappointing if it's yet again another fantastic show. But then because Jack's in it, maybe we'll get it.
That's what I'm hoping.
I should think so. That's I'm holding my hopes out. If Jack's in it, it'll be aired over here.
Do you guys get the Holzer files over there or no?
On Amazon, on Amazon Prime. I think you can watch it on there. So they're probably old. Probably won't be the new ones.
Yeah, to me, like that, the Holzer Files is my favorite show currently airing. And having worked with Dave Strader, he does a show called Darkness Radio. He's also another person who I've worked with, who is like one of my top people that I've worked with. He's excellent. The show is amazing, and hopefully you guys will be able to watch it on the telly. Coming up. I'm trying to use like English words, the telly.
I know, the telly. That's quite funny then. It's normally me talking like that. It's weird for somebody else to talk back to me like that. I'm not sure. I think we might have had it. I'm not sure we have had it over here or not. I'm sure we have. We must have done it at some point. But we've had that many shows, and I watch everything. So I'm probably the worst person to ask because if it's paranormal related, whether it is Netflix or whether it's Amazon Prime or it's TV, then I'll watch it. Like, I watch the reruns too, because obviously sometimes you think you've watched the whole series and you actually haven't. There's different shows that you've actually missed,
right?
And you've missed episodes. I record them all, so I get to watch. I get to watch them all that way. But it was disappointing. Like Paranormal Lockdown, that stopped. That was one of my favorite shows to watch.
Yeah, that and it's interesting. So what happened was Katrina moved. She teamed up with Jack Osborne on Portals to Hell.
Yeah, well, that's a good show.
That is a good show. So to me, I mean, even though Nick's no longer in the equation, I think that the show kind of is in the same spirit as Paranormal Lockdown.
Yeah, I like Nick. I've interviewed him as well. I've been very lucky to interview him because I know he doesn't. Well, it's not many UK interviews he does, I don't think. So yeah, I've met Katrina. I've actually had lunch with Katrina.
Ooh.
A couple of years ago. I know, dinner date. Well, it wasn't really dinner date, obviously. But yeah, she's lovely, so down to earth. She's just, yeah, I could talk to her all day. Let me just grab some of these. Oh, Stephen says hello from Pun TV. Carol Swindle says she loves Darkness Radio. Claire'd like to know, does Dave Schrader specialize in any certain paranormal fields?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
Dave Strader is actually an amazing investigator. I can't really talk about. We recently worked on a project together. We'll talk about it in a year or so when it's. But we worked on a project together, and I'll tell you, he blew me away. His abilities. He even though he is sort of objective, he actually is sensitive to the paranormal. So yeah, I would say that he's sort of like the grounding force that kind of is able to kind of piece everything together and to make cohesive sense out of like the stuff that people like me or you pick up. But he's also has a sensitive soul as well. So yeah, the Holzer Files, in my opinion, is the best show on television right now. It is so well put together. I'm a huge Hans Holzer fan. And the fact that they're revisiting the cases to me is just amazing.
Well, Dennis, which is part of our paranormal team, has answered that question for us. He said the Holzer Files is on Discovery Plus if anyone's got it. So there you go. We can watch it, but only if you've got Discovery Plus, unfortunately. Stephen's one minute. Oh wow! Now you have other Americans talking like that. Nice, Karen Frey. I was kind of indirectly teaching them words in. Yeah, like I said, it was the longest interview I've ever done, and I don't even think it was just a chat about you name it. We talked about it pretty much, I think.
Well, I'll tell you, like I've always had it. Like my best friends have all been British. Like I'm really close with Richard Estep, but my best friend for about 10 years, who actually worked on my first 3 books with me, Andy Warburton. Or Andrew, as his mother wants me to call him. He was British, so I'm used to having like my British best friend. Like, I always have a British best friend.
See, I need an American best friend. Then again, I can't say that because then Stephen will shoot me down now. He'd be commenting in a minute. But I talked to it. It's mad. I've spoke to, because we organise these festivals that we do, and because of obviously lockdown, we've been doing them virtually because it's our only choice, really, or just not do them at all. So I have met so many people in the last 12 months from across the pond. It's just ridiculous. And I actually probably talk to them more than I actually do to people here, because even though the time difference, because of the connections like yourself, you've got your own show, and because I have, obviously you connect with people, you talk to people because you book them on and so on, and they recommend, oh, you should book my friend, and it just kind of goes from there, doesn't it? It's all about connecting and networking.
I'll say, like, that's the bright side of this lockdown is, I launched Paranormal Rewind in May of 2020, and it just really, like, I've been able to reconnect with my friends, but I've also been able to make new friends. Like Patty Negri and I actually started talking like during the lockdown, so I didn't meet her beforehand. It just happened during the lockdown. And now I consider her a dear friend because we talk a lot, and I reach out to her for like spells and whatever I use, like old magic.
Actually, yeah, she's done 2 out of 3 of our festivals, and she's been on one of these shows. She's been on when we first started Keep On Chatting, which we started last year as well, funny enough. 2 or 3 times we had her on, and then we did the festival, so then we had her on them as well. And but we're like you, we're still kind of growing, but we have grown out of lockdown basically.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you, can you tell me a bit more about Paranormal Rewind? Before I go on to the actual show itself, Paranormal Rewind Awards.
Oh, yeah. So the Paranormal Rewind Awards, the idea of it was to have sort of like an American awards for people for the shows that air in the United States. And it really wasn't my idea. It actually was an idea of my former co-host to do that. I'm like, well, if we're going to do it, let's do it well. And so we got a panel of about 10 people. A lot of them are producers, authors, and they kind of put together sort of like a short list of people to be nominated. And then we put the voting out. and then we had around 5,000 votes altogether, and each person can only vote for one. So the people that were selected for the shortlist, I was really proud of it because I think that it was very, very well organized and very well researched, and it also really because I know that there was the Higgy Pop Awards, and that was more focused on Brit. Although there's some American people that were nominated and that won, but the goal was to kind of do that, but do it for the States. And we had a huge response. And shockingly, the Destination of Fear, which I'm a fan of, but I didn't think everybody else was a fan of that show, it did very, very well. So we had Dakota Layden on our show, and people loved it. I mean, it was a huge hit. So yeah, the Paranormal Rewind Awards was kind of like an accident that turned into this big deal.
Yeah, because I saw it, and so obviously I saw it online, and obviously having a lot of different American connections. So I did share it out when I saw it. I thought, oh, that's interesting. And then I looked through and had a look to see who were the nominees and everything. But Destination Fear, yet again, another great show that I really enjoy watching.
Yeah, and a lot of people thought because Richard Estep did the announcement of the nominees, so people thought it was a British awards. And when I told Dave Schrader, I'm like, Dave, you won like best all-time show for Darkness Radio, and he's like, I thought it was a British award. I'm like, no, it was Paranormal Rewind, but apparently because Richard did the announcements, he thought it was British.
So it confused it. Oh, so it confused everybody. Okay, so this year you're not having Richard, you're going to have an American.
I'm going to have an American. Hey, y'all, vote for the Paranormal Rewind Award. So I don't know what accent we would have.
Oh, Gary's got a question. That's tickled me. Gary's got a question for you. He says, do you go in blind into a location without any research?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I'm a historian. So like when it comes to the Salem witch trials, I've done all the research. I do go now, if I go to a location as a clairvoyant, I don't want to know the information. So I don't do research on, for example, I went to Fort Mifflin twice now, but I went as a clairvoyant during the summer. And I will say that I didn't know the ghost backstory to Fort Mifflin. And I was validated by it. So no, it's, because I know America, I know the history. It's pretty, yes. I have a tendency of trying to go in as blind as possible. But I also do a lot of research, and after I definitely do the research after having my clairvoyant walk through at a location. So yes and no. It depends on because I know the New England locations very well, but say like the Hotel Cecil in Los Angeles, I didn't know the backstory to that location or other locations as well. So yes and no.
I suppose it depends. It also, I guess, depends what you're going there for, like your reasoning behind it. So if it's a TV show, or whether it's research for your book, or whether it's for enjoyment just for yourself. So I guess it really depends on the reasoning for going in the first place. Depending what you're going for is how you are for that particular event, I suppose.
Yeah, and it really a lot of. When it comes to say the ghosts in the UK, I purposely don't do a lot of research on it because I do feel like it's in my future to, especially after the lockdown, to come over and do an investigation overseas, because I know New England, and I really want to dig into sort of the back story of my family. I'm related to Lizzie Borden. I'm related to the Putnam family. What was our family like in the UK before coming over in the 1600s? I want to dig into that whole backstory going back to England.
That'd be really interesting for you personally to find out. And you're going to write about it? Is it something you've written about or plan to write about? I'm asking because I'm interested, basically. If you're going to write about it.
Well, the book related to evil, and I can't give too much away about it. I will tell you that I'm related to some insane things that I'm I cannot believe that this, I'm tied with these people in blood. But a lot of murder, a lot of unsolved crimes that are in my lineage that goes even before the UK. So yeah, I mean, I plan to write about it, but it probably will be on a show as well. But I can't say that.
Okay, no, that's fine. Okay, moving on. Don't want to get you into any trouble. Oh, Stephen says he'll be my American best friend. Oh, thank you, Stephen. I'm sure he's after something. Claire says, "Oh, old magic. She said, what's been your favourite spell then, please?" Oh, that's because obviously the magic that you said about Patty. So you said about spell work.
Like when I go in, so I don't actually like people do like the white light of protection. I do what it's called a crystal shield, and so I chant, and I ura shokriyo, and I raise up a crystal shield of protection, so that like kind of like doesn't allow the bad spirits to come in, but it allows the good spirits to come in because it's a crystal and it's not a white light. But Patty recommended there's a potential generational curse that I was seeking help from Patty to help me with. So she helped me with a spell for a generational curse, and I've done what I call an apology ritual, where I apologize to the victims of the Salem witch trials on behalf of my cousin Ann Putnam Jr. And I did this with my high priestess friend Dana Misson, she's a high priestess, so she and I have done rituals that we call the apology ritual. So it's basically to clean up the mess from my ancestors. Okay. I'm doing a lot of post-mortem, work. Like they're long gone, but there's still unfinished business.
See, Salem is somewhere so many people I know, and even people that commented and saying that that's one place they want to visit and they want to go to.
Yeah, I love Salem. I love the history. It's also kind of it's kind of strange because it's where 20 innocent men and women were accused of witchcraft and executed, and then we go there every Halloween, and you would not believe the madness that unfolds in Halloween. So it's sort of like our big Halloween lands, and like why do modern day witches go to Salem now versus like 300 years ago they were being executed?
Yeah.
So it's kind of ironic, I guess, like that it's become.
I never really thought of it like that.
I mean, some people have said, and this is kind of dramatic, but they're like by celebrating like witchcraft and like sort of Halloween in Salem, it's almost like going to like a concentration camp in Germany or Poland, and I mean, it's not to me on the same level, but I do think my passion really is to tell the history of what happened in 1692 and to tell it correctly. Yes, I love to dress up, and yes, I love Halloween, but to me, Salem is there's so many levels to Salem that I do recommend visiting just for the information about the Salem witch trials, but there's a lot of fun things to do there as well. So there's a lot of history. It looks like England. I mean, it looks like a lot of the houses date back to the 1600s, so you see colonial era buildings that may look familiar to you.
Well, I've seen it on different shows and things. It is somewhere, like Gemma's just said, Salem's on her bucket list. It is one of those places on my list that I'd love to go to. Claire says, surely if you're a historian, some events without researching information already, some of that information is already with you, must be refreshing to go to an event you have little knowledge on.
Yeah, and because of that, because I am a historian and I do know a lot, but there are a lot of places that I don't. And like Fort Mifflin I didn't really know the backstory to Fort Mifflin, and I wrote a book called Ghosts of the American Revolution. So a lot of the Revolutionary War sites that I visited, I didn't actually know the backstory to the location, but I know Salem like the back of my hand. I know New England like the back of my hand, but I don't know like California or even Philadelphia, which is sort of like the hub of the American Revolution, or even Gettysburg. I don't know Gettysburg like that. So I still can have the opportunity to go to a location where I don't know the history, but it's hard. It's hard, and definitely where I live in New England.
Gettysburg. We've talked about that a lot in the last few months because our last event and the one before that we did, we actually had a live ghost walk around Gettysburg, which was really interesting. And so many different people that we spoke to from over in the States that have said, if you're going to go anywhere, you need to go there. And obviously it's featured on a lot of different shows and things. So that is actually another place that I'd like to go and visit, is Gettysburg as well, because it seems like such an interesting place. Even the little bits that you see on the different shows that you've watched, and the walk that we had, I wish we actually had longer and we'd had like a 2-hour walk. I think that some people that weren't so interested might have got a bit bored, but oh no, I'd have enjoyed that. I wish we'd had it for even longer. So that is another place that I'm quite interested in as well, because because the history and everything.
There are two locations in the States that people are like on their bucket list. It's Salem, Massachusetts, and it's Gettysburg. And I feel like that it attracts international tourists, but for different reasons. A lot of the history buffs want to go more to Gettysburg, and of course, like people that the weekend witches, or people that are interested in like the sort of like the witchy side of the States, they go to Salem. But another location too, like there's other, like in the South, like New Orleans. I love New Orleans. I think it's a very enchanted, magical city. So New Orleans is high on my list too, that I would recommend for people if they're visiting the States.
Okay, well, there you go. That's another place on the list. The list is growing constantly. Claire was just saying that she likes the sound of chanting protection techniques. I actually like the sound of that as well. That actually intrigued me. Can you tell us a bit more about that and how that came about with you?
So it's kind of like, my friend Dana, who she and I've done, we did the show Forbidden History together, and she and I we work a lot together out in the field. But so basically, she derived it from, it's like a Reiki-based chant. So the Ura Shokrio, Ura, that means rise crystal shield. So that's going to, and then we chant that, and we kind of create a bubble of protection. So you imagine a small pebble of like a crystal, and you blow it, and you basically make it bigger and bigger to surround you. So you visualize the crystal shield around you, and you can make it bigger and bigger. And then you chant the Ura Shokrio. Then you do what are Reiki chanting, which is Shokare, 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 Sahiki, Sahiki, Sahiki. So you kind of do.
I'm Reiki trained, so I recognize these things.
You know those, saying, so. Yep. So it is definitely Reiki based. The chanting is.
I've never thought of doing that.
Well, we should have.
You educated me.
Maybe we should have
thought. I never thought about mixing the two and actually using it for protection as well. I've never thought of doing that before, actually.
Well, you know what?
I'm gonna look into that more.
It works. It works. I was just doing the white light of protection, like they always say, put a white light of protection around you. That was blocking everything out, and I wanted something that would allow for the good stuff to come through. And so it really has worked. Like, it really has worked for me.
Yeah, I'm going to look into that. I can't believe I never thought. Bearing in mind, I've been Reiki trained for I don't know how many years. I've never ever thought about mixing the two, which sounds. I'm saying it out loud. It sounds ridiculous that I'm saying I've never thought to mix the two.
That's why we connected, Karen.
I see, because you're here to teach me
something. I'm interested in like taking like the Reiki technique, because I'll tell you, like, if I go on a case, I reach out to my friends who, if I see pure evil, which I have recently. I have my friends who are Reiki trained to send remote Reiki to me, and that works too. I can hear the ringing in my ears when my friend Becky, who's in like the Midwest, she'll say like, "I'm sending Reiki to you," and I'm like, "I know, I can hear it. I can hear your Reiki." Because it's like ringing in my ears when she does it.
Oh wow, that's amazing! And are you trained in anything else yourself along those sort of lines?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm a light trance medium, so that there was some training involved with that. I kind of pick up a lot of stuff along the way. I definitely have gone more in the pagan ritual route. I'm kind of in a shaman in training right now. So a lot of my techniques are kind of getting all the different various techniques and making it work as in a shamanic way. And I'm not Native American, so I kind of feel weird saying that. But I think that a lot of what I do is like a shaman approach to the other side. So yeah, so I've been trained. I've taken a lot of classes. I can read cards like really, really well, and I was trained on that. But I have my a lot of people these are kind of controversial, but I have my dowsing rods. So I'm a big
I like dowsing rods.
I love my dowsing. These actually are charged by a high priestess. So
Wow.
So people I use them out in the field to connect with spirit. Now some people say that that they're not real and like I'm moving them. I'm not. They'll move on their own. It's insane. So
yeah, but it's to try and force. We've all done it. We've all done that. Tried to force them to move,
right,
and not show that we're moving. You can't. It's not.
You can't. And
it's just not possible. You just can't do it.
Do I have any spirits with me now? No. And so if it doesn't cross I literally hold it up, and you know how to hold it up where it's not moving. So I tend to not do that publicly. I was at one time known as the human dowsing rod because I use it all the time. And I'm like, I'm just going to do it for privately because I think a lot of people are suspicious of it, but it works for me.
As you said about dowsing rods, what about pendulums? Have you used those as well?
Yeah, I started off with pendulums, and I went from pendulums, and I remember picking up my dowsing rods and going like, these are horrible. What's the appeal? But then they're kind of like finding your wand. Like you have to find the right pair of dowsing rods that kind of connect with you. And so I went from my pendulum, which I used all the time, to my dowsing rods out in the field. And when I found the right pair, it was like magic for me, and they were charged by a high priestess, and I feel like they're accurate. I really do.
They must have some serious energy if they've been charged by a high priestess. That's couldn't even imagine.
Like a whole ritual, like an accuracy ritual around my dowsing rods.
Wow,
it's like
that's amazing. I love that.
Yeah, and they were actually made by a high priestess too, so she handmade those.
Wow.
Yep.
So they've got some serious energy.
Absolutely, and they've worked for me out in the field.
Amazing. I haven't got any. I have used them, and I've used them out of interest because I've got. I don't know how many pendulums I've got. 2 or 3. I think I've only got 2 now. One disappeared, but they say when things disappear, it's because you don't need them anymore. That's what I've always been told. Like cards, you've got different sets of cards, and you've got your go-to ones. It doesn't matter. You can have 10 sets, but you'll always have that one set that you'll always land up going back to.
Right.
And they disappear. I had my tarot cards disappeared for about 3 years, and then they randomly reappeared. And I was like, okay, I'm going to start doing my tarot again.
I had that happen. So I used to do runes a lot, and so I had a whole set of runes, and they disappeared. I'm like, I don't know where they are, so hopefully they'll come back to me someday. I don't know where my runes
are. I've got a book. My husband recently bought. I've actually got it here on the side here. My husband actually bought me a book to learn about working with runes, because we've got a lady, Heavenly Helen. She does a show. She was on just before I was early this evening. And she does different teachings for us every couple of weeks. And that was something that piqued my interest. Has done for a long time. I've always, these events that I do, people sell them and everything on the store. The vendors sell them. And I look at them and I think, I'm going to learn that. I'm going to buy some of those. I'm going to learn that. And every time I say it, I've never left with any. Every time I'm going to buy those this time. I'm going to come back and I'm going to buy a set of those. I really want to learn to them. And I've never actually bought a set. But now I'm like determined. I want to learn now.
I think kind of like the dowsing rods and the pendulum, they got to call you. If they call you, then they're meant to be. So if you walked away from not picking them up, that means that they were not meant to be at the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do feel that, because I just feel that at the time it just wasn't I think I was doing so many different things. It probably wasn't the right time for me to. Whereas now we're in lockdown yet again, so I suppose it's like perfect time to channel your energy into something and to learn a new skill and learn something new. Because like I said, as soon as she said she was going to talk about, I kind of feel drawn to them again now. And I definitely, reading the book, it's so, at first I was like, it's quite technical in a way, because there's so much, because obviously it goes through all the history of them and all the rest of there's so much to learn before even think about picking up a set and even looking at symbols or whatever. There's so much to learn about them prior to all that, isn't it? And people don't realize.
Yeah, I mean, for me, because I'm also like, so my skill set includes like light transmedium, clairvoyant, but I'm also a psychometrist. So there's actually like, so when I touch an object, I can pick up the history on the location without even knowing the history to it, or I'll flash back like in time with it. So the runes when I would touch the runes, I would actually pick up like just like whatever it was trying to say. So it was for me, it was very weird to read runes. It was almost like I was using my psychometry with the rune readings, and it was almost kind of scary for me, so I kind of pulled away from my runes. I'm just like, oh, this is scary, because I was like getting visions while I was touching the runes. It was strange.
I've had people, because it's something that I've touched on, not something I've really gone into psychometry, not properly anyway, but I have had occasions when people have given me things and I have picked up things from it, and who it belonged to and where it's come from and who they want to connect with, because that's whose it was. And when people give you a picture in an envelope, that type of thing, I've done that sort of thing before. And so that's that's something else which I've done a little bit of, but I've never actually pursued it and actually learned to do it properly or done it more like yourself. So again, you see something else you've mentioned. Again, that's something else that I would like to learn about more, because I really enjoyed it when I did it. We used to practice it, when you go to development circle, when you practice all different things in ribbons. See, again, ribbons, something else I'd like to learn to read is ribbons. When I did it, go on.
I haven't done that before. That would be fun. We should take a ribbons class.
Yeah, we should do a ribbons class. We've actually got somebody on, Ellie. She's coming on in a few weeks, and she's actually going to do live ribbon readings.
Oh, that's cool.
On one of the show, because we have like a reading show every Thursday, and we have a different reader every week, and everyone works differently. So like last week we had a spiritualist medium that normally works platform at churches. So we had her last week, then we've got someone different this week, and so we try and have someone different from different backgrounds reading every week and reading in different ways. But yeah, ribbons, that's something else I find really interesting, because it's just, it's just something different, isn't it? It's not that common of a type of reading either.
I haven't seen it, like when you go to like conventions or whatever, like you'll see different types. You'll see runes sometimes, you'll see cards, of course, but I've never seen ribbons before. So I would love to get a ribbon reading.
Oh, right. We'll put you in touch with Ellie. I'm really interested to watch her work. But like I said, she's going to be doing live readings, and they'll literally just be from the comments. So whoever's commenting, she'll be drawn to, and then she'll read for them. Got a few different comments here. Claire says, she's been practicing. So she's been listening to what you've been saying, and then she's practiced it. Said it says it's a nice feeling. Pebble blowing technique sounds brill. So there you go. You've taught her something new tonight.
Thank you. I'm glad that we're sharing this, because it's something that it's only me and my friend Dana have used, but we've actually have raised crystal shields with other empaths across the globe. We did like a crystal shield raising when the pandemic first hit. We wanted to kind of try it out virtually, so we got a group of empaths across the world together to raise a shield at the same time, and I'll tell you, it was amazing. It was so powerful.
That just blew me away. Wow, that to experience that must have been.
It was beautiful. I was bawling.
I can't even speak. I can't even get the words to what I'm. I can't even put it into words what I'm trying to say, of what a feeling that I couldn't even imagine it.
It was beautiful. It was beautiful. It was like people working together and just basically putting up a wall of just love, across the world.
I was going to say, I'm talking to you, and as you're talking about,
Yeah,
I'm feeling so much emotion, and I feel like
it
the
was
more you're
definitely,
talking about it, I feel overcome with emotion. Like I could cry, but in
yeah. Well, you're making me
a
cry.
good way. Honestly, that's like because you're talking about it. I just feel really overwhelmed with emotion of like what a strong feeling it was being part of it and the experience of it and all the overwhelming emotions that came with it. And that's how I'm feeling at the moment. That I just kind of I don't know. I'm just so overwhelmed that I do feel like I could cry. That's how I feel just listening to you talking about the experience that you had of doing it.
And what was so special about it is we had people in Australia, we had people in England, like empaths all over the world coming together to raise this crystal shield of protection and of love. And it was very powerful. Some people were, like they did stuff after to kind of like celebrate the bond that we had. And I'll tell you, like that bonding with all my empath friends across the globe, we've really have been close ever since. It was like a very strong bonding
Yeah.
exercise.
I should imagine it's cord. You're all connected now. It's all cords. It's kind of wherever you are. It doesn't matter. There's that you've built that connection together, haven't you? And it's one of those connections that it's unbreakable. If you've made a bond, it's something you've all shared together. Even if you did it again, it wouldn't be the same,
right?
Unless it was the same people involved because of the way you created it together and did it together. It's kind of
we did the first, like right when the lockdown happened. I really felt strongly that we had to do something like this, and I wasn't sure what to do. So we did it the first time. We did it the second time. It wasn't the same intensity as the first time. The first time was just like mind blowing. The second time was great, but it was almost like a closure to the first one. Like almost like let's close this out. And it got me through. It got me through the darkest days. Like the lockdown was really scary for all of us, and I think that it was a way for us to still kind of bond and look out for each other and spread love, because there was so much, especially in the States. It was so much hate, like when it comes to politics, and just it was so angry. Everyone was so angry.
I have noticed that's quite a big thing for a lot of people. The more people I connect with, and like posts on Facebook and things are like deleting each other over politics and ranting and all sorts. I'm like, whoa, I don't want to be involved. That's a bit negative. I don't want any of that. No, thank you.
Really negative.
Move along.
It was very polarized, and I'm sure that you guys have similar situations, in England with like Brexit and all that stuff. But here, it was like very like my family thought a certain way and I thought a certain way, so we didn't think it would break up families, friendships. It was just really horrible. So I feel like we're kind of back on track to healing right now, and so doing that crystal shield really did do that. It really put up a wall of protection, not only from the spirit realm, but also with us to show a bond. We bonded together on a really, really deep level.
I can't even begin to manage. It sounds amazing. I don't know. It's weird. You get like a warm feeling. It's probably the way I can. Yeah, it's
like sending out love to the world. It was great, and we all did it, and we like a lot of people. We were crying, and there was a lot of emotion.
Like I said, when you started talking about it, that's how I felt, very overwhelmed and overcome with emotion. There was so much of it, I just didn't know what to do with it. And I was like, "You want a life? Don't start crying now."
You and I are like, I'm like that. I mean, so I've done a lot of TV. Like it's funny. Like I cry on TV. Like everything I do, I'm like I start crying, and it's like they'll cut it out sometimes. And like there's a show that I just recently shot that I cried throughout the whole episode. So there's no way they're gonna cut this part out. I'm like the notorious crier on the Travel Channel in the States. And I'm like an ugly crier too. I'm like,
oh, I'm sure you're not. And Libby said, have you either of us ever done automatic writing? Yes, Libby is the simple answer. Yes, I've done that. It's something I have done in the past. Interesting.
Oh, Karen, you know what I've done recently? So I have done automatic writing as well because it's kind of in the same school as like psychometry as well.
Hmm.
So you're kind of connecting with spirit. The hand is being guided by the spirit. I did automatic typewriting. So I had an old school typewriter and was typing
Wow.
in the same idea, and it was really cool. I mean, I connected with spirit in the same way that you do when you do automatic writing.
Oh,
So
wow.
I guess you would call it automatic typing. I don't know what you would call that.
I suppose it is. Yeah, look, I guess it is. Automatic typing. Oh, that's interesting. I
It
haven't
was
got a
cool.
typewriter. I have to start doing it on the laptop. You know, on these, I like these scare on these horror films, and they start typing their names in and all that sort of stuff. Um, do you see your guide and guides around you?
I do. Yeah. I mean, when it was a removal from like when the removal, I had the attachment that nearly killed me, and Michael Robichaud, the shaman, removed it. I saw his guides and I saw my guides. My grandmother was one of my guides, and she was really devout Catholic. And I'm gonna start crying about this too because when she died when I was young, and when I saw her, she was holding the rosary beads that she made for me. She was like doing the rosary, and she was like showing me what to do to combat evil. And she was like doing like so my grandmother, who died when I was really young, is one of my guide figures. But I've worked with other guide figures as well. But she came when I needed her, which was
Yeah.
to confront this evil entity that was trying to kill me. She loved me, and she was like,
She come to empower you and to she come to empower you and support you and be there for you in your hour of need.
yeah, she was a fighter. she was like get out of here, you know. My grandma.
A woman to be reckoned with, as
Oh my
we'd say
gosh,
over here.
she definitely was. She was outspoken when she was alive, but she in the afterlife, this woman is like, don't mess with her grandkids. She's gonna get you.
Yeah, I've got a grand like that. I was 7. I think I was 7. Yeah, I think I was 7 when she passed. There's different things I remember at her, but what I do remember is it doesn't matter whether you're a child or an adult, you'll be scared to death of her because if she gave a certain look, you'd run. It didn't matter how old you were. So yeah, I've got a grand like that. I wish I obviously because I was only 7 when she passed, so I wish I got to know her, and I only got to know through other people and through readings in so on and things like that, more so than anything else. But she comes around me quite a lot, and she is very protective. She's also where I get my stubbornness and other things from, but we're not gonna go there. Right, I've put your webpage up for you. I will put the link on for just to let everybody know yet again. Paranormal Rewind. It is on 7 p.m. EST.
Yep, 7 p.m. EST, and then that's midnight GMT.
Okay, and where can people find it?
So if you go to paranormalrewind.com, you can access the live link. It's on the network is called KCOR. So you can also access it there, but I would recommend just going to paranormalrewind.com and hit the live icon.
Okay, I'm going to type that in. Okay. Oh, for some reason, I didn't like that. Claire says, I've seen your guide, not seen mine yet. Just feeling and smells up to now. Keep developing it. It take time.
And also too, like I don't see my guides unless I need to see them. They don't always. I don't see them all at all times. Like I'll
I was going to say, people think you do, but just because you've got them, they're not with you 24/7.
Right.
Sometimes they turn up when you don't ask for them or you don't expect them.
Well,
but they'll be there for a reason.
I'll tell you, like when I was that I had an experience like a night ago where my bed was shaking violently, and it was like 3:15 in the morning, and I heard a male voice say, wake up," and I think that was my guide figure trying to protect me from what was happening in my dream. I was connecting to this entity in my dream, and it was trying to protect me from this the darkness. So
Yeah.
so they protect you. They kind of like they wake you up when you need to be woken up.
Okay. Claire says, "Oh, it's Gary's guide that she's seen. That's interesting. That's cool. So okay, we can find. I've got your website. You're on Facebook. You've got your Paranormal Rewind. And what's the next show? Well, you can't tell us, can you? What the next show is? It's going to be.
Well, I mean, the next one that I'm on that show called Fright Club with Jack Osborne and the Ghost Brothers. So that should be on Discovery Plus in the next couple of weeks. I'm not sure what episode I'm on, but I'm a featured expert on one of the episodes. And the other show that I filmed will be to be announced soon. So follow me on sambaltrusis.com or my Facebook page. But yeah, definitely it's one for the books. I mean, I'll tell you what we were able to accomplish in this investigation. It was mind-blowing.
Amazing. Gary says, he says, I'm picking up a little boy around you as well. Some white long socks on and shorts, brown shorts with a white shirt. Yeah, so
the boy is from a case that I just did. So that makes total sense.
Okay, cool. Gemma says that she's going to. I'm going to look out for Paranormal Rewind, so she's going to have a look into that. Okay, they're having a conversation with themselves now. So I just want to say thank you so much for joining me. I really do appreciate it. I've really enjoyed talking to you. Thank you, everybody, for commenting.
Thank you. And let's keep in touch, because we have some stuff that we should talk about. Like I want to maybe take some classes with you.
Cool. Okay, stay where you are, Sam. I'm going to end the broadcast, but stay where you are. Going back to what Sam commented about earlier. Tomorrow night, don't forget we've got our new show, which is at 8:00 every Wednesday, and it's our resident witches show. And so they'll be teaching you. Last week was about spell work. Tomorrow is more about spirits and hauntings. So join Liam and Chris tomorrow night at 8:00 on Keep On Chatting on their new show. And like I said, they're going to be teaching you about all sorts of things. So get on there, have a look if it's something you're interested in. And they own the Thoth Witchcraft shop and everything. So they're very knowledgeable guys. Get on there, get watching them, and ask them your questions. Thank you from me, thank you from Sam, and thank you for joining me, and thank you everyone for commenting, and thank you for all your questions and your shares. And I will see you all. Unfortunately, you have to see this face again on Thursday for the psychic and spiritual segment at 7:00. Sorry to say, but you're just gonna have to pull up with me again if you want to watch that. And I'll see you all then. Thank you, everybody, and good night.